Are you DTFF?
Once again, here is Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your hosts, Dustin Lunt and Jake Trowbridge.
Welcome back to the Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football podcast, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am your host, Dustin Lunt. As you can see, my normal co-host, Jake Trowbridge, is not with me this evening. He just got back from Ireland this afternoon. So from the long trip, he needs a little relaxation from his vacation. But we called in the relief pitcher here to jump in and man the co-host chair. So we have Josh Hudson from Club Fantasy Podcast. How are you doing this evening? Thank you for jumping in.
Calling me a relief pitcher is probably the best compliment I've gotten for quite a while. So thank you for that, Dustin.
Well, it felt a little.
It was very accurate.
Oh, okay. Accurate. Oh, well, if you're fine with it, I that was the first thing that came to my mind. So I just felt like that I probably could have done some a little bit more effervescent for you. Okay. But I'm very happy you're here because let's be honest, my fans and Jake's fans, it's not just my show. Let's be honest.
Oh, it's your show.
You're the one
showing up, not Jake.
All right, he's out of here. Yeah, let's be honest. Everyone does not want to listen to me do a solo show for 2 weeks in a row. So to have a second voice on here is very much needed because let's be honest, people don't want to see me talk and just listen to my opinion. So
I've tried doing it. I did radio. I started doing radio when I was 18 years old, excuse me. So I've been doing it now almost 20 years. And trying to do a solo show, and I've been in the producer chair watching someone else try to do it. And after about 5 minutes, he's literally motioning to me like, all right, go to commercial, turn on your microphone, and we're talking back and forth. Like, it's one of the hardest things in the world to do. I commend people that have that talent. Mm-hmm. But at a certain point, you're just making conversation with yourself. And let's be honest, most people are just going to think you're crazy at that point. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. So thanks for coming on. We have got a great show this evening. We are talking fantasy studs and fantasy duds through the first 2 weeks of the seasons. And do we think these trends that we've seen over the first couple weeks, will they continue? So that's going to be the main point of conversation for this evening. But first things first, Josh, if you listen to our show, we always talk about what we're drinking in our beer of the week this week. So I'll throw us off here first. I am drinking a Whisktoberfest. It's a Märzen style beer with a nice little skeleton, whatchamacallit, German guy on here. It's Märzen season. I love Oktoberfest. It's my favorite beer season of the year. I can't not get enough Oktoberfest in me. So that's what I'm drinking this evening. Very good from a nice local brewery here in Wisconsin. Are you imbibing in something this evening, Josh?
So I felt the need to indulge because, I mean, look, if you're going to appear on Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football, you have to have yourself a nice beer, craft beer, etc. I'm not the biggest craft beer fan. I will specify this. I usually sit on our shows and I'll have my Trulies and.
Hey, we do not judge on this show.
But in the spirit of DTFF, and yes, I'm down to DTFF. So I went with a local brewery here in Florida. It's in Sarasota, Florida. It's called J-Dubs. And they have what's called passion wheat. So it's more of a hoppy style. I'm not huge on like dark beers and pumpkin spice can kiss my ass and all that other.
Oh, thank you.
So sorry, not my thing, man. Just not my thing. But J-Dubs and the passion wheat, I'll cheers to that.
Nice.
That's what I'm going with today.
Nice. All right. Well, would you give it thumbs up? How would you rate this beer? Is it good? Since you're not necessarily a craft beer aficionado.
No, I've had it before. I used to go actually. So the brewery here actually has like a restaurant set up as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And the owner of it's a huge Eagles fan, which I'm also an Eagles fan. So me and some friends of mine for a few years, we used to always go down to the brewery and we'd watch the Eagles games. And obviously the only thing you can get there is J-Dubs beer. And they've got all kinds of different ones. And that's just kind of the one that I felt fit my palate the best. So that's what I went with. And yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, good. Speaking of being an Eagles fan, and I was going to save this for a little bit later, but it makes for a good segue here. I think I need to offer an apology out there to Jalen Hurts because I was not as I didn't think he was going to do as well as he did as he ended the year last year, and so far through 2 weeks.
Well, to be fair, he ended the year getting benched. So
okay, well. He did light up the end of the year last year, and I know a lot of us analysts out there were very high on him going into this year with that rushing upside he has, and thinking there was going to be improvement with his passing game, which there definitely has been. And he is not in our studs and duds list for this evening, which is part of the reason why I wanted to bring this up. But I personally want to apologize to Jalen Hurts because I know he listens to the show and say, I am sorry I ever doubted you, at least for fantasy purposes. He's getting it done. I've been really impressed with what he's done through these first couple of weeks here. As the resident Eagles truther on the show tonight, how are you feeling?
I mean, we're 1-1. He beat the team that he was supposed to beat, so I'll give him that. I mean, he's completing 67% of his passes, no interceptions. I'll definitely take that. We knew all about his rushing upside, and currently among quarterbacks, he's second in rushing yards at 144, just behind Lamar Jackson, which, let's be honest, Lamar Jackson was going to lead all of quarterbacks in rushing yards, especially without a number one running back in Baltimore. I mean, through 2 weeks, especially from a fantasy perspective, I'm on board with it. I'm not mad at it at all. I would have loved to have seen a better performance last week against San Francisco, considering how abysmal they looked against Detroit. But they came to play. And I don't know what's going to happen. Dallas's defense has looked better. I mean, holding Justin Herbert to, he topped 300 yards, but he threw 2 interceptions, and they held the Chargers offense to only 17 points. So it doesn't make me totally confident heading into Monday night. But again, I mean, his rushing upside is going to keep him viable in terms of fantasy. And at worst, he's a low end QB1 the rest of the season. So I would be right there with you. And I'll be honest, I had him kind of that mid to kind of in that 15 to 18 range as far as QBs for the season. I was lower on most, but yeah, these first couple of weeks, I think he's proven me wrong, and I am man enough to admit that. I think I had him QB 11, I believe.
Yeah, but I will say if he shits the bed here the second half of the year, I will take that late victory lap on him. So I don't expect that to happen though. Honestly, at this point, I'll take my lumps and just deal with it. So
we can't be right 100% of the time, right?
No, if I was, I would not be doing the job I'm doing. Let's be honest.
I know. Then we'd have to do this sober. Like, come on, who the hell wants to do that?
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's move on here before we get into the heart of our episode and do our drunk trade of the week.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
Dustin, you're still muted, buddy. There you go.
There we go. I don't know why I was lagging so bad. That was odd. I was sitting here waiting. I'm like, okay, the drop.
I was like, do I need to read it off?
Oh, great show we're having. All right. So our drunk trade this week comes from Reddit user Kevin BM3. I hope that's not a daily BM occurrence for him, because then you might have issues, but that's besides the point. So this is a Dynasty PPR league here. So Kevin says, last season got pretty toasted during week 1 Monday night game. Traded away Saquon and 2 future second rounders for Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, J.K. Dobbins, Nyheim Hines, Cortland Sutton, and a first rounder. All right, so that's the first part of this. There are a lot of pieces there. So basically,
and the fact that you got that much for Saquon Barkley is an absolute home run.
Yeah, I agree. Especially since he was the one that was toasted and offering the trade.
Right.
I mean, that feels like something that the toasted person would I would be on the receiving end of someone doing the drunk trade here, not the one offering out that trade. So yeah, first part of the trade is great. I mean, let's be honest. We should have stopped here.
Yeah, but there's more.
There's more. Yeah, there's more. So he says then immediately flipped Cortland Sutton for Frank Gore. Nope, not the Vice President of the United States. Frank Gore and 2 second-round picks. So take that in a vacuum by itself. How do you feel about Cortland Sutton for Frank Gore in 2 seconds?
I mean, if it were Al Gore, I would love it, right? No, I'm just kidding. I mean, from a dynasty perspective, Gore's pointless, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, 2 seconds for Sutton heading into last year, I don't think is egregious by any means.
No, and Gore had some viable weeks last year.
Last year he was hurt. He missed all of last year. It was the year before that he was coming off of a 1,000-yard season. So that's what I'm saying.
He's been around for 1,000 years, so it's hard to keep them all straight.
Calm down. No, like I said, I mean, even heading into the start of last year, prior to the injury, getting 2 seconds, I don't think is egregious. I think obviously, I wouldn't deal him for less than a first because I look at him as a wide receiver one. I've been a huge Sutton guy from the moment he was drafted. I thought he was easily one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver prospects coming out of that draft class. So I've always had that type of value on top of him. So yeah, not bad, but I mean, if you're contending, obviously I want to keep Sutton.
Right.
But if it's a sell-off and get the picks, sure, by all means.
Yeah, and then there's more to this story here. And it's a drunk trade that just keeps giving. So then he says that Saquon and Sutton got hurt the following week and ended up winning his league.
Well,
best
Gibson,
drunk decision
McLaurin,
ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what Gore did.
Naheem Hines, he had a good season last year.
Hines had a good year, yeah. I don't know who else was on the team, but yeah.
And he ended up with a first rounder in 2 seconds. I mean, traded away the 2 seconds, so that was those two he received back were kind of nullified. But yeah, all in all, that is a great drunk trade, I will say. Especially since you received all those young, good players. I mean, that's
what you want
cool.
in Dynasty. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably should have stopped before you flipped Sutton. Let's be honest.
It's okay.
But
2 seconds.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, all in all, Kevin, not a bad drunk trade. We've had much worse. I would actually give this one a thumbs up because I think you did well overall, and you ended up winning your league. So let's be honest. In the end, that's all that really matters. Yep. You win it for 1 year, you're good. So yeah, congrats on you for winning the league and being. I don't want to say you fleeced your teammate that you were able to trade Saquon for and get all that talent back, but. That was a damn good trade to pull off.
Saquon is somebody that I'm not messing with in Dynasty. Even in redraft, I wanted nothing to do with Saquon personally. I've always felt he's very overrated as a generational prospect. But,
well, that term gets thrown around so often.
Well, there's that, yeah. But I don't know. Like with Saquon, I feel like with excuse me, with it as many big runs as he has throughout his career. He should have much better vision on the ones where he's losing a yard, 3 yards, 4 yards.
Right.
It's like at a certain point, dude, like take what the line is giving you, which I understand isn't much.
It's not much.
Still, it's just, yeah. That's why I've always been a huge fan of Frank Gore. Obviously a great segue from there, but he took what the defense gave him. Fall forward, get a few yards, then break the 10-yard run, then break the 40-yard run. Like
that's right. And obviously, I mean, with, like I said before, that all that young talent with McLaurin, Gibson, obviously Dobbins is hurt, but he should come back next year just fine. And that's just one less year of wear and tear on his body.
Dobbins now. Just
sit
tight.
Stop.
Hang on to him.
Stop while you're ahead. Although I was one of those fantasy owners last year, I didn't do drunk trades, but I did trade for Sutton after he was hurt. Towards the end of the season when he's been on the bench and people kind of forgot about him. Because like you, I mean, I'm not a big college tape grinder by any stretch of the imagination, but I did like what I saw out of his rookie year. And so he was one of my targets all off season, trying to get him wherever I could. Cause I thought for sure he was going to bounce back. Obviously did not expect the Judy injury, which, is a whole different thing, but I did expect him to return to that number one kind of alpha on the team. So I'm happy I got him, and things are working out for him.
A little bit later.
Oh, okay. Foreshadowing. I love it. All right. So before we get into our meat of the episode here, we do need to do an ad read from our sponsor here. So let me get up the screen here and I will read.
It's you guys with sponsors.
I know. Well, I know big time, but yeah. So our sponsor this week is brought to you by Poor Richard's Farm. Poor Richard's Farm offers 100% grass-fed beef sticks from European beef cattle raised ethically on their Wisconsin farm. Combined with all natural ingredients, Poor Richard's Farm uses no fillers or artificial preservatives and vacuum seals their beef sticks to remain shelf-stable. Their cattle are never given supplemental hormones or antibiotics, but are given fresh air and wide open spaces, which makes for physically and emotionally healthier cows. All of Poor Richard's Farm beef sticks are smoked with real hardwood chips and come in a variety of flavors, including barbecue hickory, teriyaki maple, and my personal favorite, Tex-Mex mesquite. So right now, if you go on their website, use promo code DTFF at checkout, and you can get 5% off your order. So visit poorrichardsfarm.com today, and if you buy 3 or more packs of their delicious all-natural beef sticks, you will get free shipping on your order. So go check them out today, and you will not be disappointed.
How many people do you think accidentally leave off the second F, and then they're seeing these codes at DTF?
Well, that's a different sort of website and podcast, I'm sure.
I always find that funny. I love the name of the show. I love the abbreviation, but I'm always like, all right, how many people are going to leave off the F by accident just for shits and gigs?
They don't get their 5% off then. That's on them.
Oh, nerds.
I know. So, Josh, I know you said before we started recording here, since I didn't have injury updates available and ready because, life and whatnot, and I just wasn't fully prepared for the podcast. I was going to try to pull it up as we talk, but you said, no, Dustin, I got this. So why don't you give us a quick rundown of some of the injury updates that we can expect for this upcoming week here?
Well, considering I have almost a full page of injuries, I don't know if it's going to be quick, but we'll start with the quarterback position. Tyrod Taylor from Houston put on IR today with a hamstring injury, so he's out a minimum of 3 weeks.
Yep,
Rookie
doing
Davis
Tyrod
Mills.
things.
Yep. Well, hey, at least he avoided a punctured lung this time. It's just
very true.
Rookie Davis Mills is going to start in his place on Thursday. If you stream defenses and Carolina's out there, go grab them now. Andy Dalton dealing with a bruised knee. This is the true definition of a week-to-week injury. Bruised knees, not fun at all. There's a strong chance we will probably see Justin Fields in week 3. But again, Matt Nagy has been very steadfast in his opinion that when healthy, Andy Dalton, for some weird reason, is the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Carson Wentz is dealing with not one, but 2 sprained ankles. Two sprained ankles. Frank Reich is considering him day to day. I personally don't know if he's playing. It's a divisional game this week against Tennessee. It looks like Jacob Eason will probably start.
Yay.
At this point, I don't even think it's going to matter. Both teams really aren't looking great, in all honesty. And even if Carson plays or doesn't play, I want all the A.J. Brown this week because Indy has looked bad. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa from Miami is dealing with bruised ribs. Apparently, the report is that it is strictly a pain tolerance at this point. If Tua can handle the pain, he will play. If not, we will see Jacoby Brissett, much like we did last week. They play the Raiders this week. Speaking of the Raiders, quarterback on the other side, Derek Carr is dealing with an ankle injury. Gruden has called him questionable, but sounds hopeful that he will play on Sunday.
Yeah, it's like you looked at all my fantasy squads and basically named off all my starting quarterbacks so far, and I hate this.
Andy Dalton and Tyrod Taylor are starting for you? Oh, goodness.
No, Carson Wentz, Derek Carr, Tua. I mean, it's just, it's not good.
Oh, Dustin. Oh, Dustin. Oh, Dustin. That's all right. Stream the quarterback position. That's all you got.
That's right.
Cleveland wide receiver Jarvis Landry suffered a knee injury Sunday, was placed on IR today. That should open up some opportunity for Donovan Peoples-Jones, which most people are not talking about. He's been third in line in the depth chart, now second with OBJ not playing. Now he vaults up to number one. He ended up playing the most snaps among all of the wide receivers this past week. I know there was targeted a lot to the tight ends. Just keep the name in mind when waivers run. Pittsburgh wide receiver Deontay Johnson, near and dear to my heart. Not cool. Suffered a knee injury. Mike Tomlin has said he's doing better, but did not say that was a great thing. So
yeah.
My guess is he will probably end up missing at minimum this week, maybe even the following week. All that's going to do is just open up opportunities for Claypool and Juju. But I also think then you'll see Eric Ebron now get a little bit more involved from a wide receiver perspective. Terrell Henderson with the Rams is dealing with a rib injury, specifically rib cartilage. They sound like he should be able to go Sunday. But we've seen with Henderson in the past where these injuries really sort of like just sap him right out of the lineup. So, well, we'll see. Obviously, if he can't go, that opens up a lot more opportunities for Sony Michel. And this feels like a recurring theme over the last 3 years. San Francisco 49ers running backs are hurt. What do you know? They lose
all of them.
Raheem Mostert. Yeah, all of them. They lose Raheem Mostert in week 1. This week, Elijah Mitchell goes down with a shoulder injury. They're saying it's a stinger, so he should be able to go for this week. Trey Sermon got his first carry of the year, carried it 8 yards, promptly left with a concussion. JaMychal Hasty suffered a high ankle sprain. So he's considered week to week. They're saying it's likely going to be a 1 to 3 week injury. So again, kind of just play it by ear. As a result of all of these running back injuries, the team has brought in Duke Johnson, TJ Yeldon, and Lamar Miller, all for visits. And they also have Kerryon Johnson on the practice squad. So
the who's who of grossness for running back.
Have fun rostering San Francisco 49ers running back.
Just pass. Just everyone out there, just don't even try to figure it out. Just pass for this week.
Awful.
Just roster someone else from a different team.
Just awful. Jacksonville wide receiver Laviska Shenault suffered a shoulder injury. I don't have very many other details outside of that, but it sounds like it's more of a stinger at this point. So he's seeing target share, just hasn't done much with him. So we'll see how that injury plays out. Philadelphia tight end Zach Ertz was placed on the COVID reserve list. I believe it was yesterday. The team signed or brought up Richard Rodgers, I believe, from their practice squad to help out for the tight end room behind Dallas Goedert. And in the last bit of information that actually isn't injury related, but Dolphins beat reporter Cameron Wolfe has reported that Will Fuller returned to the facility on Monday. By all accounts, he's in a better headspace and is expected to play Sunday against Las Vegas. Without Tua, I don't know if that matters too much, but again, the news is there for you. Back to you, Dustin.
Whoa. All right. That was nice. Thank you for that. So yeah, we're going to start with our fantasy studs here. And basically what I'm going to do, Josh, is I'm going to say some names here, tell you where they're at after the first 2 weeks of the season here. And you tell me, are they really this good? Is this going to continue, or is this more of a mirage? All right. And if you've got something you want to throw at me with the names that aren't on the, some names that's not on the list, let me know, or just throw it at me. I'll tell you back. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. So first name on the list here, all pro, just coming out of I shouldn't say out of nowhere, but just everything we'd ever hope from Cooper Kupp. He is the number 2 scorer overall, averaging 30.3 points per game. Just looking like he's got that connection with Matt Stafford over at the Rams now. Do you think this is going to continue? Is he going to be the number 1 in his Bobby Trees, near and dear to my heart? Is he going to be kind of the number 2 wide receiver? Or is this just, with Matt Stafford just kind of being finding just the guy right now, and it happens to be Cooper Kupp?
I mean, they're breakfast buddies, right? They're all going to brunch during the week, and doing their thing. Cup and Stafford. I mean, look, Cup was Jared Goff's guy too, and that's the thing. And this goes back all the way to his days in college. He can catch the football. He doesn't drop it. He makes these catches, gets open, takes it the rest of the way. Even when Cup was having his ball out seasons previously with Goff, Robert Woods still had a role. And that's what seems worrisome here in terms of Robert Woods, is that he really doesn't right now. Like, Cup is literally the lone focus for Matthew Stafford. And it to me, it's just one of those things where as long as Cup keeps getting open, Stafford's going to keep throwing it to him. So unless defenses start running more of these like high-low coverages and, doubling up on Cup, that's the only way I think that Robert Woods is going to start seeing more volume. So I think with Woods, it's going to be a lot more matchup based than maybe we probably wanted it to see. But for me, I'm all in on Cup. Like I was high on him last year, even with Goff. I remained high on him this year. I still thought he was going to have a role. Him and Woods were going to be back and forth in terms of target share anyway. But I really felt that Cup was going to bounce back in the touchdown department anyway. I wasn't 100% sure it was going to hit like the double digits that it did a couple years ago. But I didn't think any way in hell it was going to remain at 3. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. That was an anomaly from what he normally does.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to remain as like that 30 point per game threshold that he's currently at. Maybe he comes back down to earth a little bit, but I can easily see him still going for 20 a game. I mean, what's that? 9 catches and 90 yards? Seems to be doing that with ease right about now.
Yeah. So low end wide receiver 1.
I think you're probably talking about a top 5 wide receiver, honestly.
Ooh, top 5. I like that.
Yeah. I think he might end up finishing top 5. Probably even top 3 if it keeps going this way.
Well, if it keeps going this way, for sure. I could see that happening. I have always been a big fan of Cooper Kupp. I actually, figuring that the value was going to be high, tried to trade him in this offseason. Didn't happen, thankfully, because I'm liking the return I'm getting so far. But yeah,
some of the trades you don't make are the best trades.
Yeah. I offered him up many times and every time got rejected. So I'm happy for that right now. And hopefully my league mates are a little peeved at that. So I like that. So next one here is we're going to switch over to quarterback, and we're going to talk about Derek Carr, who I know you said, has a little bit of injury, but he's currently sitting at QB8, averaging 24.1 points per game. Now, I have liked what I've seen out of this offense so far. I mean, we knew Darren Waller was going to get his, but I like that Bryan Edwards has gotten a little bit more involved. And, it seems like the Raiders are trying to open it up a little bit more, and they kind of have to, being in that AFC West with the rest of the high-flying offenses in that division. So do you see Derek Carr, obviously health, withstanding here, staying in that low-end QB1 range for the rest of the season?
For me, it's more about, can they get the running game going? Because if they can't, Derek Carr is going to have to throw the football. And, we saw how non-existent the wide receivers were in week 1 until about 30 seconds left in the football game before overtime. And then last week, Ruggs being able to get deep, which we saw last year with Nelson Aguilar. Like, that's what this offense is going to do. It's going to work underneath. It's going to, chip away your 3 yards of carry from Josh Jacobs. It's going to get 5 yards on a slant from Hunter Renfrow. It's going to get 7 to 12 from Darren Waller. And then they're going to take that 40-yard bomb. And right now, Nelson Aguilar is that guy that's filling that, or not Nelson Aguilar, Henry Ruggs filling that Nelson Aguilar role. Bryan Edwards needs to be able to hold his own on the outside, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to help Ruggs get deep, but it's going to help keep the safeties honest. Because if Ruggs can keep doing damage, which is why they drafted him, because he has that kind of talent, it's going to take focus away from Darren Waller, which again is going to help the offense anymore. And as long as they can keep that pass going, Josh Jacobs can get 3.5 yards per carry instead of 3, when he's healthy.
Right.
But yeah, the offensive line is a work in progress. They jettisoned all their starters from a year ago,
which still blows my mind.
I still feel like this is going to be a work in progress. The offensive lines in general just take time to gel. Like, and we've seen it even, to start the year with Kansas City. Like, they basically revamped their entire offensive line as well. So, you can't expect these guys to come out and be a top 5 offensive line right away just because the talent is there. You still need to get familiar with the people that are right next to you.
Yeah, and especially since, for all purposes, preseason, starters don't play during the preseason anymore.
Correct.
So, I mean, they don't get those reps, like real actual game reps to, like you said, earn that chemistry and gel together. So before we get to the next one, we have a question in the chat from Michael Chapp here. So he has offered someone in his league, Herbert and one of Sutton, Gordon, Gaskin for Lamar Jackson. This guy he offered him to has Mahomes as his QB1 and Lamar as his backup. So he really wants Lamar. So I'm going to assume this is a PPR league. How do you feel about Herbert and one of those players and getting Lamar in return?
I mean, I don't hate it. I think Lamar, the thing with Lamar is he has to go nuclear this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's literally it's nuclear or it's falling flat on your face because there are no other options on that Baltimore offense. Like he's going to have to make something magical this season. And I have a feeling that it's either going to plummet in your championship games or it's going to face plant the Ravens in the playoffs because at the end of the day, one man can only do so much.
Yep.
Like he's had, I think, 5 career games with over 100 rushing yards and over 200 passing yards. And there's a chance that he might equal that this year alone out of necessity because they just don't have anybody else. And we saw it on Sunday night against the Chiefs. Like he was Superman. And it took everything that he had. And they still only won by 1. Like, I feel like Lamar is the ultimate fantasy cheat code. So absolutely go after him if you have the opportunity. The problem with offering up another quarterback to get him is he already has Mahomes. He doesn't need
right. Him. Yep.
So at that point, it's like, all right, what can I offer to entice him? And at that point, it's ultimately going to take skill position players to do that, which is then going to hurt your team because what you're trying to do is keep the nucleus of your team intact and then add Lamar Jackson to that. Now, is Herbert and, say, Gaskin or Sutton fair for Lamar? Sure. But what I would really be trying to do is build around Herbert and not kill the nucleus of my team to get the high-profile quarterback like Lamar Jackson. That's why most people in the fantasy industry preach the idea of waiting at the quarterback position. Because when you end up spending those early round draft picks on a Mahomes, on a Kyler, on a Josh Allen, on a Lamar Jackson, you're foregoing a potential wide receiver 1, a potential, cheat code at tight end in Kelsey or Waller, a potential, wide receiver 1, or a running back 1 or running back 2. Some of these guys that, are ultimately playing more valuable positions because you're starting multiple of them in the lineup versus only one quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have Herbert, who is a young and very good quarterback. I know he struggled a little bit to start the year, but I mean, I think we all expect him to do well and continue to do well, especially with all the weapons he has around him. I know he's not quite the cheat code that Lamar is with the running or rushing upside, but I mean, you've already got Cortland Sutton, who is a very good wide receiver, who I expect to end up as a low-end wide receiver 1 this year. Gordon, yeah, he's got value for this year. Gaskin, value for this year. Michael here in the chat says this guy seems to want a bigger return for Lamar. I don't know if I'd give up much more. I mean, the drop down from Lamar to Herbert isn't necessarily going to be that much. Like you said, unless Lamar goes nuclear, if he has a kind of a pedestrian season like he did last year, well, Herbert finished higher than Lamar at the end of last season. Exactly. So, I mean, just because you have Lamar doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the better fantasy production, although I understand the upside there. So, I mean, personally, with those guys that you have on your team, like you said, build around those guys and maybe trade for another like running back piece or a wide receiver piece as opposed to trying to get Lamar, unless that's your guy. If you really love him, just go get him then.
go out and get him and have fun rooting for him. I can't promise that's going to lead you to a championship. But, but again, fantasy is more fun when you're playing with guys that you want to root for.
Exactly. That's what we always say here.
My big suggestion here would be don't try to trade for Lamar now. Wait for injuries to happen on this guy's team and then swoop in, because maybe later in the year you could just say, hey, I'll give you Sutton because you lost the receiver. I'd like an upgraded quarterback. Give me Lamar.
Right.
Is it a fair trade? Absolutely not. But
that's
it's
the way it goes.
Of, that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I would like. I now have the assets that you need, so you're going to pay my price. Like that's simple economics. It's supply and demand.
Yeah,
and that's the thing in one quarterback leagues is quarterbacks don't have the same type of overall value, even though at the end of the day they end up scoring more points, which theoretically should make them more valuable.
Yep. No, I love that. That is a great point there. So, Michael, I hope we answered your question here. So let's get back to our fantasy studs. Next one on our list here is Gronk. And I'll admit, through 2 weeks, I kind of whiffed on Gronk. I expected him.
Dude, we all whiffed on Gronk. Don't hold that against you.
I expect him to finish as a tight end 1, which I know is not, the most difficult thing in the world here. But he's currently sitting at tight end 2 at 24.4 points per game. 2 weeks in a row with 2 touchdowns. Do you expect this to continue? I mean, he's got that chemistry with Tom Brady there. So and I said it last week, I'm like, as far as waiver wire pickups or whatnot, I was like, it's overreactions. I'm like, let's not overreact to this. Gronk is not going to have 2 touchdowns every single week. And then he went out this last week and proved me wrong and had another 2 touchdown game.
It's the Falcons.
Okay, fair enough. But it's very apparent that Tom Brady likes Gronk and is going to be targeting him, especially when it gets towards the end zone. So is Gronk going to finish in this upper echelon of tight ends, or is he going to kind of finish down in that low end tight end 1 where he did last season?
I mean, just looking at the schedule, look, they're at the Rams this week, then they're at New England, they're home to Miami, at the Eagles, home to the Bears, at the Saints, at Washington, home to the Giants, at the Colts, at the Falcons. And they end the season versus the Saints, at the Panthers, at the Jets, versus the Panthers. Like, I know the Panthers have looked really good this year. The Saints, their defense has been pretty hit or miss. The Bills have been hit or miss. Colts suck. Falcons suck. Giants suck. Bears, Eagles haven't been able to cover tight end since Malcolm Jenkins was there. Why can't he finish as a tight end 1? Hell, why can't he finish top 3?
Yeah.
At this point, you're banking on the chemistry, right? And, there's so many mouths to feed. I completely understand that. But Gronk scores touchdowns. That's what he's done his entire career. You know damn well these 3 are going to go for 3 touchdowns against the Patriots, right? Like, we all know this.
Absolutely.
Bill Belichick has been so good about taking away a team's best weapon. Who is Tampa's best weapon? Pick one. Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown. That's 3 potential Hall of Famers at wide receiver. Then you have Rob Gronkowski, easily, arguably the best tight end in NFL history. You take away one, somebody else is going to beat you. Like, this is what Tom Brady does. And it's not like he doesn't know how Bill Belichick coaches. He played against his defense every day in practice for damn near 20 years. I see zero reason why, at this point in time, seeing how Gronk has started this season, I see no reason why he cannot finish top 4 at tight end. Unless he gets hurt, we're looking at vintage Gronk right now. This is what he did. It was either I'm getting 80 yards and a touchdown, I'm getting 40 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he doesn't really need to do much because they're not double teaming him. You got to pay attention to Evans and Godwin and Antonio Brown. You can't double team him. With New England, they had to double team him. He doesn't have to. Nobody has to. He's not going to see any double coverage ever.
No. No.
in this offense.
And that's what's really scary, especially with this offense. It's just like, pick your poison, who's going to go off this week, which I know is extremely frustrating for us fantasy GMs out there of who to start on what week. But yeah, I see no reason why Gronk can't finish, like you said, in that top 4, top 5 with ease, with just what we've seen after these 2 weeks. That's not something I was saying
at the beginning of the year.
No, me either.
No,
I was expecting, like I said, low end tight end 1 value because it's Gronk, and it's not hard to finish there. Let's be honest, except for maybe you or me. Oh, I shouldn't speak for you. For me, let's say I probably couldn't finish as a tight end 1, but
trust me, I couldn't finish as a tight end 1 either.
But for the average tight end in the NFL, that's not a very high bar to set these days. But to finish in that top 4, top 5, that's a little bit different story. And with the way things are going, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he probably wouldn't finish tight end 1 just because Kelsey has the yards and the touchdowns, and probably not tight end 2 with Waller because he, kind of same deal there. But tight end 3, yeah, I can make a case for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, moving on. This was one of Jake and mine's favorite players to talk about in the offseason here. That's Brandon Cooks. So right now he's sitting at wide receiver 11, averaging 20.5 points per game. Basically, he's the only target there in town, so that's why he's getting force-fed the ball and doing what he's done. But he's just been perennially just undervalued in the fantasy community for whatever reason. You could get him so late in drafts this year, it was ridiculous. So are we going to see him continue to be this low-end wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season?
Not the rest of the season. I think he's still going to be Houston's wide receiver 1. With Tyrod out now at least 3 weeks, I'm taking a back seat on Cooks for at minimum the next 3 weeks. I think you're going to see a lot more of the tight ends get involved. I think you're going to see more of the running backs out of the backfield. Rookie quarterback coming in, they're not going to sit here and start throwing 20-yard bombs. The benefit to Cooks has been nobody's double teaming him because they don't need to. Houston's not going to beat them unless you're Jacksonville, because
of course
Jacksonville sucks. But like Carolina, they don't sure they can slide a safety up top just in case, but they're not going to need to at the end of the day to contain Cooks. Like they're basically going to put pressure on Mills and say, all right, beat us. Mills isn't going to be able to do it. So I'm definitely out on Cooks for the next 3 weeks. Nico Collins, their rookie from Michigan, who he just landed on IR himself. That now takes a wide receiver 2 out of the equation, which again opens up more targets. And we saw last week Cooks ended up, I think, with 14 targets. And everybody else, the next best, I think, had 3. Like, he is their offense at this point. So is it possible? Sure. But at this point, they need to find a quarterback that can get him the football, and I'm not convinced right now that Davis Mills can.
Yeah. It really makes me sad, too, with the Tyrod injury, only because, one, the guy can't seem to catch a break. It seems like every time he steps in, he's getting his chance to be the starting quarterback. Injury kind of derails it. Rookie comes in and replaces him. But, yeah, the offense was actually clicking surprisingly well, and he was looking really good. So, yeah, it's just a little aside there that I was rooting for him to continue to play well this season. All right, moving on. We'll do 1 or 2 more here. So let me see. Who do I want to pick? Unless you have one for me in the stud section that's not on our list.
I have some stats on Rondale Moore.
Okay, yeah, let's hit it. So Rondale Moore, he is currently wide receiver 17 overall, averaging just over 17.5 points per game. So hit me with these stats.
So again, love the kid. I'm at 1,000% rooting for him. And I posed this question on Twitter. And I said, there's literally no logical reasoning, whether it's analytical, physical, athletic, whatever. There's literally no reason why Rondale Moore should be succeeding right now, because nobody at his size has succeeded at his position in the NFL. It just has not happened. He is 1,000% an outlier with whatever he does, if he does actually succeed. Right now, he's succeeding. But here's the catch. He has not even played 40% of the team's offensive snaps. And he's doing what he's doing, which tells me that they are scheming to get him the football. If you are an NFL defensive coordinator and you see Rondale Moore on the field, what is your first thought going to be? Cover that guy.
I was going to say, he's probably going to go to that guy.
Like, at a certain point, teams are going to realize that because you are making it obvious that when Rondale Moore is on the field, he's getting the football. Mm-hmm. And now it becomes, you have to stop him. Right now, teams aren't doing that, but it's only 2 weeks. Give it time. So right. I'm not saying that I'm buying this fact that he's going to be like, right now he's a wide receiver 2, a wide receiver 17. I don't see that continuing, especially because he's currently 4th on his team in snap counts behind DeAndre Hopkins, behind AJ Green, behind Christian Kirk. Now, if you're telling me that Rondale Moore could earn more snaps than AJ Green and Christian Kirk, yes, I will buy that. But let's not sleep on Christian Kirk. He looked really good week 1. He had a decent week, So, like AJ Green, I've been out on AJ Green. Like, yeah, he caught a touchdown last week. Okay, cool, whatever. It happens. But just the fact that right now you're telling me that the 4th in line at wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals leads the team in targets, leads the team in receptions, and leads the team in yards. That's just like mind-blowing to me right now. So no, I do not expect that to continue when DeAndre Hopkins is still on that football team.
All right, so realistically then, saying that, obviously he's not going to be, in the wide receiver 2 range necessarily. Where would you see him finishing the season, do you think?
I think at best he's top 36. And by that, I mean like between 30 and 36.
Right. I think that's fair.
More realistically, top 40. Because again, at a certain point, teams are going to catch up. They're going to realize that when he's on the field, he's going to get the football. But at the same token, too, the more teams focus on Rondale Moore, that's going to leave DeAndre Hopkins wide open.
Right. And like you said,
wide receiver in the NFL.
Right. And you have AJ Green, who maybe, isn't what he used to be. He's kind of the ghost of AJ Green at this point, but still can produce when given the opportunity. And he wasn't brought in to be the focus, the wide receiver 1 on that squad. So, I mean, it's maybe not to the extent that we were just talking about Tampa Bay and their weapons, but I mean, you've got good quality wide receivers there, and that offense is just going to throw the ball. They want to spread it out, and they want to throw it.
So they run the highest percentage of 4 wide receiver sets in the NFL.
Yeah, so at some point, like you said, you can't focus solely on Rondale Moore because they have those other weapons on the team that they can throw to. So I can see him finishing as that low-end wide receiver 3 come the end of the season. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities whatsoever.
I was going to say the only other one I was going to think of was Devo Samuel as a stud.
No, he's not. I left him off for a reason. I thought about adding him, but I have been
you
so
have Brandon
high.
Ayuk as one of your duds, so obviously we can touch on Samuel when we get.
This was again. Jake threw this together while in Ireland. He put together the names of the players. I just filled in the stats for him. He did most of the legwork. Probably he's just feeling guilty that he wasn't going to be here this week. But yeah, I mean, I have been a big Devo Samuel truther all off season. I was scooping him up all last year. Again, when he was on IR and injured, kind of sporadically throughout the season, I was scooping him up wherever I could. So I just didn't want people to think I was taking a victory lap here after the first couple of weeks and spouting my love for Devo and how right I was. So that's why he's not on the list. I'm trying to be impartial.
I was trying to give you an opportunity to victory lap a little bit. It's only 2 weeks, but hey,
I know. All right. Well, let's move on to some fantasy duds here. So basically, these players we're going to talk about, are we really worried about this? Is this sort of trend going to continue? And I think probably for the majority of them, we're going to say, no, we shouldn't be overly concerned.
Only 3 of them where I'm legitimately like, all right, let's.
Yeah. But, or is this just kind of a slow start? As I said before, offenses don't really play a whole lot in the preseason as far as the first stringers all playing together. So this just could be they're starting to gel and get used to each other again, playing as the first stringer. So CEH, he's currently sitting at RB 46. Can you believe it?
Yep, because he sucks.
Oh, so there's that.
Sorry. I'm not a CEH fan. He was a huge fade for me all off season. Like it was very easy to get caught up in the hype of, first round rookie running back heading to the best offense in the NFL. Bye. We all forgot that CEH just is not that good. He's an okay runner. He's a talented pass catcher. But the problem is he can't block, so he's not in on passing downs when he should be getting the football. And that's what we're seeing right now. Mm-hmm. He's not getting targeted.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing.
Mahomes catching back to not get targeted, you have zero value in fantasy football.
Well, and that's not Mahomes' game either. He likes to throw the ball downfield. He's not a check down type of quarterback. So, yeah, CH is not going to be catching a lot of balls out of the backfield there for the Chiefs. I mean, unless Mahomes goes out, God forbid, because no one wants to see that. But otherwise, yeah, he's just not going to be catching those balls. That really does cap his value. So I'll admit I'm a little bit worried. I mean, obviously he's going to finish better than RB 46 come the end of the season. I expect him to kind of be maybe a low range RB2 at this point. But if people are expecting a return of that RB1 that we were all hoping for, I just don't see that happening this year.
Yeah. I like I said, I've been out on CEH. So.
All right. I think these next couple, we don't have to go into a whole lot because I think I'll speak for you here that we're not too worried about these next few players. By the end of the season, they'll be just fine. And this is Josh Allen. He's currently sitting at QB 18. Justin Herbert. I can talk. Herbert sitting at QB 24, and Alvin Kamara sitting at RB 17. Do you have any concerns about the three of them?
Nope. None whatsoever.
Me either. All right. This next one, I don't know if I'm necessarily super worried about it, but it's slightly concerning. And let's lump the next two together because it is two San Francisco players here. We've got George Kittle, who is sitting at tight end 12, and then Brandon Ayuk, who really hasn't played much. And I just threw this on the show sheet because it's a ridiculous thing. He's currently sitting at wide receiver 135, which is a far cry from what everybody was spouting here in the offseason. And again, I know he's kind of injured and, weird first couple weeks for him. But I think what we've seen in this offense, well, we've seen Devo get his. And I know a lot of that was buoyed by that first game. He had a really big first game. But I have liked what I've seen out of him. George Kittle, I mean, he's tight end 12. I think he will get back on track. I'm not too worried about him. But Brandon Ayuk, I mean, that's a little bit more of a concern, especially with some of this talk that Shanahan has been given to the media and stuff about him having to play better than the people behind him and things like that. So what are your thoughts with Kittle and Ayuk?
So with Kittle, I got absolutely eviscerated by Bob Lung and my co-hosts over the summer when we had Bob Lung on our show to preview the San Francisco 49ers. And I said that George Kittle is not somebody that I'm targeting early, even though he's part of this holy trinity of tight ends. And the biggest reason why is because he spends half of his time blocking.
Mm-hmm.
When you spend half of your time blocking, that's half the time you're not running routes when you should be running routes to catch the football to give me fantasy points. You are banking. Yeah, you're banking on efficiency with Kittle. And I understand that we've gotten that over the years. You want to hear a fun stat over the first 2 weeks about George Kittle? Guess how often he is lined up as a blocker?
50%?
62.3%. Okay? You have seen the merry-go-round of running backs that they have trotted out. And instead of saying, look, our running backs are hurt, maybe we should just stop running and throw to one of the best tight ends in football. No, we're just going to keep running with even worse running backs. What the hell is Kyle Shanahan doing? You have, again, a top, arguably the best all-around tight end in the NFL, and you would much rather have him in line blocking.
Mm-hmm.
That is why I do not trust George Kittle in fantasy football. It's not because I don't like him or because I don't think he's good. He is freaking awesome.
You got to love the way he plays the game. Like he plays it.
And I love it.
It's great.
I love it. But your best asset is availability. If you are not available to help catch passes, which he's not doing because he's blocking, because that's the plays that they're calling, you're not helping our fantasy teams.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest beef with George Kittle. Yes, he's going to still have his good weeks because at a certain point, Kyle Shanahan's going to wise up and he's going to realize that George Kittle can get it done, especially in a really, really good matchup. But even in a bad matchup, he can get it done. Unless you're playing the Cardinals because Budda Baker's just going to smother him. But, with Ayuk, the encouraging part of it was the amount of snaps that he played last week and the amount of routes that he ran last week. He was second on the team in both of those categories. I understand right now that it's Deebo's job to lose, which is fine. That's great. When has he stayed healthy for a full season?
This is true. And this was
going back to college.
Mm-hmm.
He's played in 5, he's played in 10, played in 3, and played in 12 games in 4 years. Those were his, you can see the big leaps and bounds there.
Mm-hmm.
Then he played 15 his rookie year. Awesome. Still missed a game. Last year, he missed 9 games. Health with Devo is a legit concern. And I love Devo Samuel. My roommate is a huge college football guy. Turned me on to Devo a few years ago when he was drafted. And I was not disappointed his rookie year. He was absolutely lights out. And even the games that he played last year, he was fantastic. I love watching him with the ball in his hands because he has no fear. Plays a lot like George Kittle. Puts it all out on the line. And he right now and through 2 weeks, he leads the NFL in yards after the catch. He gets it done when he has the ball in his hands. But at this point, he's a time bomb when it comes to injuries. We don't know that he's going to stay healthy because he has not proven over his career that he can last a full season. And now they've added a 17th game to that schedule.
Right. And this is why I'm not taking the victory lap with Devo quite yet, because I do recognize that injury history with him. The thing that I really love about Devo is that they manufacture touches for him. He's essentially, they use him as a running back. They'll hit him with the short passes and then let him run the ball, get the yards after the catch, which I love, which is not really what I've seen with Ayuk even last year when Devo was hurt. That's not really his role. So I like that they manufacture those touches for Devo, which is why I was so high on him.
With Jimmy Garoppolo's game, because he does not throw the ball deep very well. He's got a noodle arm. So when he can work these pick and pops and, the dink and dunks, the bubble screens, etc., let the guys get the yak. That's what they do best. The moment that they end up switching to Trey Lance,
it's only a matter of time.
Going to take off.
So that being said, realistically, where do you see Ayuk finishing? Because I know a lot of people were expecting him to just take that leap.
Everybody wanted him to finish. That's what I'll say, because honestly, I don't know outside of that. I'm gonna take the cheat way out on that one. At this point, I wouldn't be shocked if it's barely top 50, but I don't think he's gonna finish as wide receiver 135. That I can tell you.
Yes, I would put a large amount of money on that bet to say he will not finish that low. All right, so then one last fantasy dud here we'll talk about. Jonathan Taylor. He's currently sitting at RB23. Averaging 12 points per game. I know you said it earlier. This offense has not been looking great so far to start the season. I know JT has flashed a little bit. He had couple of nice runs this last week. That the little bit I saw of the game. Again, we were expecting him to finish, as an RB1 and kind of a mid-range RB1 prior to the Wentz and Quentin Nelson injuries. I know they're back, so. Maybe low end RB1 is a more fair place for him to finish, but I don't think we expected after a couple weeks he'd be sitting as a low end RB2. Do you see the ship getting righted with him?
I'm not really worried about Jonathan Taylor per se. I think at a certain point, even if Wentz is hurt and out for a while, they're going to lean on Jacob Eason. And anytime you have young quarterbacks, what's the best medicine? It's short passes and it's a running game. The big question really for the Colts has been the offensive line, where they've had some issues outside of center and Nelson at left guard. They've cycled Davenport back and forth between left and right tackle. Eric Fisher's only played a 1 game. Who's the right guard? I can't think of his name right now, but he's missed some time as well. So there hasn't been any cohesiveness yet. And again, we talked about it with the Raiders and with the Chiefs. Like when these teams don't have time to let their offensive lines gel and really get a feel for it, especially when you're trying to work in a new quarterback, even though it is a system that he's familiar with, it's still new players that he's working with for the first time. It makes you nervous. It really does. I think, like I said, I think JT is going to be fine. I think it's a rough start. He had a rough start to last year and then finished strong. And I understand he had an easier schedule at that point. But a lot of it's really just going to depend on, can they figure this quarterback situation out? And right now it's up in the air. Like I said, if Eason does end up starting this week, I think you might actually see a really good game from both Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. Because again, that's what they're going to need to lean on to beat Tennessee, because you need to be able to take the ball out of Eason's hands, because if you're expecting him to lead you back against Tannehill and AJ Brown and Julio Jones and Derrick Henry, it ain't going to happen.
Nope.
You have to rely on the legs of Jonathan Taylor, and that Tennessee defense is god awful. Taylor should have a really good game this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think
absolutely.
after that, we'll stop talking about, Taylor's broken. So
fair enough. And I love Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, you see my Wisconsin Badger flag behind me.
No,
I'm a big JT fan. We've seen what he can do for years around here. So I'm sure he will get right. I'm not too worried about that. Realistically, though, probably more of a low-end RB1 than that mid-range that we were hoping for. But, if we see more of that work out of the backfield, that could change. So we'll see. All right, so we're nearing the end of our show sheet here. So I know we all have our starts of the week here, and Jake provided one for us as well. But why don't we take a look at the upcoming week here for week 3? And is there a game or two that you're really going to keep your eyes on, especially fantasy-wise, that interests you?
Thursday night for every single Carolina Panther. Look, they're gonna boat race Houston. I'm sorry. Like I drafted a lot of Davis Mills just because I figured he was gonna get thrown to the fire pretty early this year, and I figured maybe I could turn him around for a 2nd or 3rd round pick. But it's not gonna be pretty. My co-host Ryan Weiss is as I like to call, the Stream Master General, and he has been all on board the Carolina Panthers. And I wasn't believing him up until they finished last week. Carolina's legit. They're going to bring it. In terms of, I'm really intrigued by that Bucs-Rams game.
That was one I was going to point out.
I was going to say that one and Seattle, Minnesota, just in terms of like pure fantasy points where defense really could get left by the wayside. Seattle's defense, meh. Minnesota's defense, meh. But they can put up points on offense. They've got they've got some good quarterbacks. They have very talented wide receivers. Obviously, we know how good Tampa is. This is the Rams in LA. It's a home game. Jalen Ramsey has been lights out so far. We know how good Aaron Donald is. And Ndamukong Suh once played for the Rams. He's going to have some revenge on his mind on the other side for Tampa. This is a game where I could see it being 48-45 shootout, or I could see it being like 10-7 defense.
Yep. Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's what's so exciting about it. It's like, it's either people are going to have number one highest fantasy totals for the week or for their season coming this week with all the fantasy relevant players on both teams, or they're going to be sorely disappointed and lost because it is that defensive struggle. So that was one game I was looking at. And then the other one is the Sunday night game, selfishly with the Packers and Niners, just because the Packers have struggled against the Niners the last few seasons. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out versus that Niners defense. And
well, if we're going that far, selfishly, I can't wait for Monday night. So,
which, I mean, that should be a really good game too, though. I mean, like you said,
that's
Dallas' defense has been playing better.
Dallas defense is going to show up. The one that got boat raced by Tampa opening week, or the one that shut down Justin Herbert last week.
Right. And that could be a huge fantasy output game too for all the fantasy players involved. I mean, if neither defense decides to show up, I mean, you could see
and Philly's defense has looked okay. We did just lose Brandon Graham, our stud defensive end for the year. To which, I mean, again, that leaves a huge hole in the defensive line. So, there's a lot of things that could go wrong and a lot of things that could go right. So that's another one kind of similar to Tampa Bay and the Rams, where my eyes are definitely going to be on that one from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move in here then to our start of the week here. Jake says Robert Woods versus Tampa Bay. How do you feel about that one? I know we were talking earlier about Cooper Kupp kind of being the focus of this offense, and Tampa Bay's defense has looked really good so far.
But their secondary still sucks.
It does, but I mean, Stafford's got to get out the ball though too. So,
that's the one thing that Stafford has had working in his favor. He's always had a very quick release, and the Rams' offensive line has, they're top 10 right now, just in terms of pass blocking grades and run blocking grades per Pro Football Focus. So, obviously, maintaining and holding Aaron Donald is one assignment, one too many. But they, I think Woods has a good chance. I don't know that I would trust it yet, but I will say that depending on where they line Cooper Kupp at, if they keep him in the slot, then I'm going to be all on board Cooper Kupp instead, because then Woods is going to see a lot more Carlton Davis, and of the secondary players, Davis is hands down their best corner.
Yep. So my start of the week is Saquon versus Atlanta. Yeah, this is a get right game for him. He's not looked great so far to start the season, and
this makes me think that you started the season 0-2, and then you needed a get right game yourself, so you went with the easy route.
No. I have Saquon on one squad, and I did win this last week, even though he didn't do so great. And I had, I think, the second highest score in the league. So no, so just don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. Saquon, this is going to be a get right game for him. I think he's going to have a big game from what we expect to see from him. He's had a couple weeks now coming back from that torn ACL to kind of get used to it and get comfortable on it. So I think this is going to be a get right game for him. And Atlanta's defense is god awful. So yeah, I know it's kind of a layup pick here, but I think it's going to pay off.
Definitely a layup. Yeah.
Yeah. So who is your start of the week?
My start of the week, I'm going with a week 2 stud that showed out, Cortland Sutton. He plays the Jets, and the Jets suck. Teddy Bridgewater has looked so much better than even I imagined. And it's making me wonder why I ever thought Drew Lock should have been the quarterback to start the season. But the couple stats that I found really interesting, Sutton had 1 catch for 14 yards in week 1 and still accounted for 51 air yards in week 1. After last week, he leads the NFL in air yards with 309. Like, he went absolutely ham last week, 159 yards on 9 catches with 12 targets. He is their passing offense. And I fully expect them to really get the running game going. I would love for them to stop splitting the carries between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams and just give all the carries to Javonte Williams. But until that happens, I think it's going to be a hard thing to really get either one of those guys going fully, which is going to mean that they have to lean on the passing game. And Cortland Sutton looked really good last week. And I don't see any reason why that should skip a beat against another really bad defense.
Absolutely. I love that. And selfishly, as someone that, as I said earlier, invested in Sutton hard this offseason, I love that call. So,
see? Foreshadowing.
That's right. So our last little thing here that Jake and I normally do during the regular season, and I will get Jake's opinion on this, folks, and we'll let you know if Jake takes this beer bet. But Josh, would you be willing to take this beer bet? And when I say beer bet, it's normally a shot or chugging a beer, whichever you choose.
What am I? Okay, so I see the names here, but I'm just curious because I don't think one of them is playing this week.
What? Oh, this was before the questionable. You're right. God damn it. Well, you got to make me look that on my own podcast.
That's like I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, well, is this for this week? Was this like a season-long thing that they're just like?
No. This was before I didn't think he was going to miss any time this week with that injury.
He may not. I don't know. Like again, the reports say he's doing better, but it's still not great. So, like I said, I personally don't think he's going to play this week, but he could very well end up playing this week.
All right. Well, give me a minute here, and I will come up with a new one. So, folks, while I'm looking up new stats here.
I'll tell you what, while you do that, let me fill in everybody what the original bet was. While you do this, the bet
fair
was
enough.
T. Higgins versus Deontay Johnson this week. Okay. Now, I love both of these guys. I had them separated by maybe 4 spots in my preseason rankings. I had Deontay Johnson as wide receiver 14. I believe Higgins at either 18 or 19. And I have Higgins outscoring Jamar Chase on the season. So I'm all in on both of these guys. And if you don't know me and what I do with Club Fantasy and how much I love Deontay Johnson, I love Deontay Johnson. I'm all on board the Deontay Johnson hype train. He is an absolute stud. He is a target monster. And shame to all of you who faded him because he had drops. I didn't see any of you guys fading CeeDee Lamb because of his drops. Guess who doesn't have a single drop on the season this year? Deontay Johnson. So suck it. Anyway, so yeah, if this were the case, if we had a healthy T. Higgins, who they played Pittsburgh this week, I believe, and yes, so Deontay,
and that's usually our thing is that we pick players that are going against each other in the same game, just for whatever reason. That's just normally what we do. So, I mean,
you could probably keep the same, mindset and say Claypool.
No. I don't like that. How about this one? I found a couple wide receivers.
Okay.
That we touched on the game. It's the Seahawks versus the Vikings.
All right.
So we've got. I will say. I'll say, Adam Thielen outscores Tyler Lockett in PPR this week.
I'll take the Tyler Lockett side of that.
You'll take the Lockett side? I love it.
Side, yeah, because I think KJ Osborne right now is going to outscore Adam Thielen this week.
That doesn't mean that Thielen can outscore Tyler Lockett. So I love it.
I will take that. So I'll be Team Lockett this week.
All right. So I'm updating our show sheet here.
All right.
So how this goes now, Josh, just so you know, and we'll see if Jake gets in. I'm sure he'll take it just because it's our first bet of the season.
I'll send you guys a video. I'll post it on Twitter, whatever it is I gotta do if I lose. So.
Yeah, or if it works out in your schedule, you can pop on the show for 5 minutes and pay up your bet because I'm sure I'm going to win this one. So the deal is when you lose, you have to tell the other fantasy analyst that they are an incredible genius / fantasy analyst.
Okay.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine reference if you've seen the show.
Very sad to see it go off the air. So.
I know, me too. So that's
that was
our whole
very
thing.
Good finale though. It was a very good finale.
I haven't seen it yet, so don't ruin it for me. I know. I'm like a full 2 seasons behind at this point.
And you guys are referencing a show you haven't even finished yet. Come on, Dustin. Get with it, man.
I got nothing. I'm sorry.
For shame.
I know. I got nothing. I can't even argue it. So yeah. So that's the deal. Like I said, if you can't make it on the show for whatever reason, we will shout you out. If I lose, I will shout you out on the show. But otherwise, yeah, you can post a video and we'll get it out there to shame you for.
I was going to say
to everyone else.
I'm off next Tuesday, excuse me. So I might be able to arrange popping on if I do lose, or popping on if I win. And
yeah, no, it goes the same way. If you win, please come on, so I can tell you how incredible you are as a fantasy analyst. That's what it's all about.
There you go.
So yeah,
I work on props.
So yeah, that basically finishes up our show since we are at the bottom of our show sheet. This is your weekly.
One more question in the chat, Dustin.
There was? Oh, there is.
Exactly.
All right. So hopefully Zachary is still listening. Sorry, Zachary. Just got so into the conversation. So he was offered Antonio Gibson and other Davis.
I don't know what. Oh, who?
Corey Davis? Maybe?
That would be my guess. I don't know any other Davises.
I don't know either. For DeAndre Hopkins, PPR. I mean, if it's Corey Davis and Antonio Gibson,
I would do that.
Yeah, I would probably do that too.
I don't love giving up a number one wide receiver, but I'm always going to take a number one running back, and I do still feel that Antonio Gibson is that.
Yeah, and if it's Corey Davis, I expect him. I mean, with what we've seen so far, he's going to be a solid wide receiver too on the season. Which your team needs wide receiver twos. They can't all be wide receiver ones.
We talked about Corey Davis a lot on our show this past week because Ryan and Joe both have been all on board the Corey Davis bandwagon all off season. And we all, after week one, we all said, all right, cool. Corey Davis, great. Still love him. Fade him this week. Bill Belichick takes out your number one option. That's what he does. He did the exact same thing to Miami in week one. Gesicki, 0 points. Last week, Corey Davis, 2.8, I think he had. So this is what Bill Belichick does. So don't, if you see a buy opportunity for Corey Davis, I would do it. Granted, I don't recommend trading DeAndre Hopkins to get him, but you're getting a number one running back in Antonio Gibson.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. So we are definitely in agreement there. So yeah, thank you, Zachary, for that question in the chat. Sorry, we did not see that sooner. This is your weekly reminder, folks, to go out and check your waiver wire for dropped players. You never know who's going to be dropped out there that one people think is their trash is your treasure. So make sure you're doing that. No bye weeks. Thankfully, we have none until week 6. So it's full slates of football until then. Josh, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and what you do and all that good stuff here before we let you go?
Well, first off, thank you, Dustin. And thank you, Jake, if you're happen to be listening. I appreciate you guys inviting me on and letting me come on and shoot the shit and have some fun. Who doesn't love talking football and having a few drinks,
Absolutely.
You can find me on Twitter, just like it says on the screen, at the One Hudsonian. That's actually my social media handle on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I run Club Fantasy. So clubfantasyffl.com is our website. We have articles up there every single week, waiver wire columns. We do a lot of betting analysis now. So we have our Blurred Lines article from one of our new writers, Joel, which should be dropping sometime tomorrow or Thursday. We have a partnership with Thrive Fantasy, which is a kind of a combination of prop bets and DFS play. So we do some articles and videos on that. You can also check out our YouTube page. Tomorrow, actually, Wednesday, we're giving away a signed David Montgomery Bears jersey because we just crossed 200 subscribers.
Nice.
And that whole thing kind of spawned because we got into a lot of David Montgomery debates last week through our audience questions. And I just happened to have a David Montgomery signed jersey. So I said, screw it, let's give that one away.
Nice.
So yeah, every 50 subscribers we get, I have a whole closet full of signed gear, and we usually spin a wheel and decide kind of what we're going to give away for that week, and we enter all of our subscribers into the contest, and just let's have some fun. That's the whole thing for us is we do this for the fans, and obviously we love talking football, but at the end of the day, we want to help you guys win, and that's what we're trying to do. We have our Core Wednesday show, no pun intended, with my co-hosts Ryan Weiss and Joe Zolo, whom you guys have had both of them on the show at one point. I'm still a little hurt that I was the last of them since I run Club Fantasy, but hey,
it's definitely not least, though. That's the thing. That's just how it worked out, man. Come on.
Doesn't matter when you come on, as long as you come on. Right?
That's right.
We have our Thursday DFS and chill show. We obviously it's DFS based. hosted by Ryan and our lead DFS writer, Kira, and we have different guests on there every week. This coming Thursday is the debut of our Dynasty show, Club Dynasty, hosted by myself and one of our Dynasty writers, Zach Smith, and we should be having a guest on for that as well. And every Saturday morning, we do our Start Sit Different Day. So we do it Saturdays instead of Sundays like most other people. So you get your questions in first, and then you can ask everybody else for confirming opinions because we.
There you go. Yeah, I like that.
We always have new guests on for that. It's Saturdays at 11 a.m. again on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Club Fantasy FFL.
All right. Awesome. Lots of good stuff there. Definitely go check it out, folks, if you haven't, because you are missing out. Some of the best in the business.
And I'm sure Dustin and Jake will be on some Saturday with us in the near future.
I would hope so. But no, thank you so much for coming on and filling in for Jake here as the sitting co-host this week. I truly do appreciate it because, as I said at the outset here, just talking into a screen by myself, people don't want to see that. So this was great. I truly do appreciate it. I had a lot of fun this week. So thank you again for coming on, folks. You can find us at our fantasy page, Twitter page, at Drinking Fantasy. You can find my co-host Jake at Jake Trowbridge, and you can find me at FF Dusty Dog. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Go on, guys.